Hi, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to DBA Platform. Today's program is Local SEO Spotlight. We're doing pure Q&A today with our expert, Jan Gilbert. My name is Sarah Bryant. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at DBA Platform, where our mission is to get you found. And we're going to talk about all things local SEO. You're here because you know how important local listings are to consumer decisions. In fact, most decisions start with online search in terms of buying today. So local SEO is a big part of the broad net that is cast to get people in, to get paying consumers. And whether you're a novice at this or you're an expert with these business profiles on Google, Bing, Apple, et cetera, every possible search venue, the stuff is getting more complex and more difficult to navigate, but we've got some answers today on how to make it easy for you. We have a dialed-in education where we're going to really tackle your specific questions. So what we're going to focus on today is just some local search changes, the core update and local updates, and then we really want to get into the Q&A. If you came with questions, you can already start loading them into the Q&A box. And we have an upvote feature. So how we're going to do this is, if you can locate your Q&A in your Zoom controls, pull that box up, and throughout the presentation for the next hour, people are going to put questions into that box. And then everybody who's participating in the webinar today has an opportunity to upvote those questions. If you have the same question as somebody else, feel free to upvote it, and we'll take the questions in the order of the most popularity. And so the questions with the most juice on them, we'll make sure that we get to those. A lot of times we don't finish the Q&A because we end up with dozens of questions in there, but we'll try to get to the most important ones. So if you keep that box open, you'll be able to participate in which questions get answered today. And I want to, of course, give a nice introduction to our expert, Jan Gilbert. He is our product expert at DBA Platform, but he's also extremely well regarded in the world of SEO. He kind of keeps up to date with everything. He is a nationally acclaimed speaker on the subject of local SEO, and he is the person who developed a Local Falcon, which is sort of the premier tool that people use to figure out how they're ranking in local search for different keywords. So Jan, thank you for being here today. I look forward to helping get everybody's questions answered. Remember, go ahead and put your questions in that Q&A box, and I'll be watching that as we do the presentation today and posing those questions for Jan to answer for you.
Super. Thanks, Sarah, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet with you again. So I like to get started every time with the new categories. I like to keep everyone up to date. So there's been a few new categories this month. New type of restaurant, Algerian restaurant, casino hotel, and then drone service. So maybe not so applicable to everyone, but maybe drone service. Maybe if you're a photography business, maybe you have a drone, you might want to add that as a secondary category. There's previous editions, which were a bunch of therapists. Gutter service and home staging might be interesting. Home staging for real estate agents who do that might want to add that as a secondary category as well. So a few new additions the last couple months that might be relevant to you. And so we'll move on here. I like to talk about the general updates with Google, with Google Maps. There hasn't been too much, to be honest. And so I just want to mention the core update. I've struck out March because now we're into April. It started March 5th and we're still ongoing. And SEOs were just like, okay, when is it going to be over? The thing is, there hasn't really been a lot of, a lot of times the core update will affect Maps rankings. And I haven't seen that too much in any of my clients as far as ranking fluctuations, or sometimes categories will shift strengths and secondary categories and things like that. I've seen that in the past, but at this point, I haven't seen any. I'm assuming it's nearing the end, so we're not going to have any large fluctuations in local, grid rankings. One thing I do want to point out, and it may not be on everyone's radar. If you're on Twitter, it will be on your radar because everyone kind of is mentioning it, but it doesn't mean that you really have done anything about it. So when I talk about Reddit for a bit, we all know that, well, if you're paying attention, Reddit is at the top of the search results. So in this case, I typed in Reddit at the end of my query here, but a lot of times Reddit is showing up at the top of a general service query. So I just wanted to focus here. So, window installation Houston, you don't have to type Reddit. Sometimes Reddit is going to be the third or fourth result in the SERP. And so we want to pay attention to what's there. And so what I want to recommend to everyone here is to just do a couple searches for your clients or for yourself. And in this case, we do service plus location and Reddit at the end of your search, just like this, and see what comes up. A lot of times you're going to see the subreddit for your city or for your town, and you're going to see people asking questions about that service that you've put in. So here's a couple examples of this. So, what are some good affordable companies? People are looking for specific service in their area, and they know that they'll get good results, right? So I guess people are not happy with SEOs and what we're doing and how we're ranking things up. It may not be the best answer for what they want, so they go to Reddit to get real people's answers, right? And so people are doing this a lot more, and you'll notice that I didn't, if we would dig into each one of these, you'll have regular people answering, and the trust value is pretty high, especially if your brand shows up a couple times in a positive way. It can really help the sales process. Problem is, it's very hard to measure. So a lot of agencies don't go and do this because we can't measure. There's a lot of times you can't hyperlink, and if you do try to hyperlink, the Reddit mod is probably going to just remove that post that you did. So you can't really measure, even if you go and try to manipulate an answer yourself. But it's there, and it'll help sales if you check this out. So go ahead and see what people are talking about. Maybe you have an extra Reddit account. Maybe you want to tell your client, maybe they want to create a Reddit account, and if their business is mentioned, they want to answer a thread or say, hey, or maybe you want to, as a marketing agency, you want to go in and say, kind of fake and say, yeah, these guys, I use these guys. This was, they did well, they did a good job, whatever. But there's a lot of good information in these threads for maybe posts, right? So a lot of people like, how much does it cost? Or how long did it take for the install to happen, or prices. And so there's a lot of conversations that are happening in these Reddit threads about that local place plus that service that you might want to incorporate in your marketing somehow. So in this case, we search for service location Reddit. So now you're just getting a general idea of what's going on. In this search, if we look here, like one of them they mentioned here window world, right? In this third result here, window. All right, so let's look at Window World. Let's say Window World was your business, or you're working for Window World. Window World reviews in Houston, right? And then here's a couple examples of what I would search. It depends on how big your brand is, and if you're in multi-locations, right? So brand reviews Reddit, brand location reviews Reddit, and you're going to get, again, people mentioning Window World. Here's a bunch of times Window World was mentioned. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. Maybe you want to be able to insert a little thing. Maybe you're the brand and you want to say, hey, this is not how it went down. That person was a bad client. Maybe, you have to be really, really touchy on what you want to say, but you might want to, if there's a really bad post against your business, you might want to mitigate that, or you might want to talk to them, say, hey, mods, that's defamation, get that down, right? So there's a lot of different things that you can try to do, but I guess the important thing here is take a look for your business, put your brand name into Reddit and see, and do searches and see if are people mentioning your business. What are they saying about your business? Is there anything you can do if they mention it negatively? If they mention it positively, maybe you can even, hey, thanks for, that or whatever. So again, these are real people. It's heavily moderated, so you have to be really, you know, careful with how you're entering, if you're posting in Reddit, because they can sniff out a marketing post in a second, and either you'll get banned or deleted, or other people will know that it's a marketing post, like other real people reach them, that's a fake post, right? So and then you'll just get negative downvoted. So you have to be careful with how you answer. But the first step is to take a look to see what's going on. I don't think you have to do this very often, but if you haven't done it yet, I would do it, and see if you could put it in your process somehow. As long as Reddit stays up high. At this point, we don't see any reason why Reddit's going to start dropping, in 10th, 15th spot where it used to live. Right now, all these, Reddit posts are 3rd, 4th, 5th spot, so they're very highly visible. And
Hey,
people
Jan,
now
are there other apps like Reddit that do the same thing? Like, I'm just thinking about for service area businesses, I know they use Nextdoor. That's a very local, another app that's very local, a great place to troll and pop in information. But besides Reddit, are there others that people should be looking at?
Quora's been one that is not as strong as Reddit, and I feel like Quora is just a cesspool of garbage answers.
It's a little abused at this point, probably.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything to this level of like, this is good information. If you go to Reddit and you search for your brand and people are talking about you, like, you can see that's legitimate. In Quora, I haven't really seen the same level. Maybe I just don't trust those answers as much, but it's hard to find things. Quora's weird, where you'll click on it and then the answer is there, but then there'll be like a huge ad and then there'll be other questions, and it's a really messy place. I just don't understand why Google is pushing that. From a user side, it's very difficult to use and find proper information. Nextdoor, for example, what I would pay attention to is in the SERP, if you're doing something like your brand plus reviews, maybe don't put Reddit at the end, but you can put your brand reviews and location, and you can see what's there. So maybe Nextdoor has maybe HomeStars has a lot of reviews, maybe your Yelp listing has a lot of reviews, and they might be different than your Google. Maybe your Google is 4.8, but your Yelp is a 3. You might want to pay attention to those reviews as well. So that's something you could do. So take a look at your brand in the SERP, Reddit, and like we just mentioned, maybe some other review places, and get a handle on what's going on. How are people talking about your business? It seems Google is promoting this a little bit more. So you just want to at least get a handle and see. A lot of these conversations have to go back to the client. It's not like you're going to go and do something automatically. I've done this with my clients recently, and I say, hey, I found a bunch of threads that people are asking questions about your service in your town on your subreddit. You might want to go and create a client, a Reddit user, and answer and say, hey, I use that place. Or someone talked about you in a negative way. You might want to go in and answer them. Something like that, or you might
somebody on the webinar with just initials AB commented and said Reddit and Google made a deal.
Yeah, so the deal, in general speaking, and it doesn't impact local in that sense, but Google is basically getting access to all the information that Reddit has, so that it's allowed to train its AI. So it's basically a legal thing where Google can't use information to train its AI, but now that it's made a deal with Reddit, Reddit owns your information and is selling your information to Google. And these are regular conversations, regular people talking, and that's the deal. It's for Google protection, AI training, that kind of thing. So it's pushing Reddit on the top because Google wants people to use Reddit so that it has more information to train on. So it's kind of a manipulation in the market. At least that's how I see it. That might be conspiracy a little bit, but it just happens to work like that. Just,
Well, with all the changes that Google makes, one thing that is consistent over all the years is that Google wants real information. Google wants to mirror reality as much as possible. So when, with Quora being sort of like a place where marketers go to post information and you can see that it's a marketing post and not real a real reflection of the world. You know, Google discounts those things, and on Reddit, it's a lot. I mean, Reddit is very much like people's opinions, and it feels very real. And so it makes sense that Google would prioritize that and push people there, because Google's always looking to mirror reality as best they can, which makes sense because it makes Google the right place to go when you have a question. And if Google is the right place to go, then they get their ad dollars. And that is the simple equation of Google, right?
Yeah. And it is good information. I'm not saying anything about that in a negative way. It is heavily moderated, and also the users will heavily downvote you or criticize you if they sniff out any fakeness of marketing. So you have to be careful. But yeah, it is good, legitimate information. I think people are getting good answers from it when people do right things. So, but as marketers, we need to insert ourselves. We should at least monitor at least once to go check what is being said about my client, what is being said about my business, and different markets if you're multi-location, just to see. Because even if you don't want to insert yourself into that Reddit conversation, if people are like really talking negatively, like you might be getting okay reviews on your Google listing, but if people are saying and nitpicking these little teeny things, you're like, you know what? No one's ever told me that they didn't like this thing, right? So you might get good information about your business, or general, window installation, and says, I wish my guy would have done this instead. It may not have been you, it could have been a different company, but now you know what, maybe and people are like, oh yeah, I wish that happened to me too. Now you're like, you know what, when I do this service, I'm going to make sure that thing happens, because it seems that people care about that or something like. So you can learn a lot of good information. Right. So that was it. I just wanted to mention that there was nothing besides, like, for me, it's important to local, because people are having local conversations. So it's not necessarily the Google Maps, but I just wanted to call, show people how to use this change in the SERP to their advantage at this point. So I'm gonna leave it open to regular questions at this point. So I'm gonna stop sharing. And we have a bunch of
Okay.
questions.
And we've had a lot of people join in the last few minutes. So I just want to mention again that this is going to be a Q&A session today. So locate your question and answer box in your Zoom controls. And so we have about 15 open questions so far. Upvote them, and I will take the questions in the order that of most popularity. And you can just pop any questions that come to your mind as we have this discussion about local SEO. Pop them in there. Other people are looking and upvoting. And we'll start with a question by Greg Shattuck. I've noticed recently that some service area businesses are showing up in the map pack further away from what address they used for the GBP listing, like 10 to 15 miles away. They don't really rank where they're located, but they do rank further away. Have you noticed anything like this recently? What do you feel would cause this?
I haven't seen anything. So if you have examples, we have that in our Facebook group. If you want to share a couple of things, nothing has changed as far as that is concerned. Your verified location, whether you're hiding it or not, is still your central point of where the ranking should radiate from. So if they're service area businesses, maybe you're just not, maybe you just don't know where their location should be, because they can pick a service area, but doesn't mean that they're located in the center of that service area. When you're looking on, they have, if you choose a service area, you'll see like that red perimeter of like where they want to work, but doesn't mean they're right in the middle. They could be a little bit offset, and it could be like that. So I'm not exactly sure without seeing an example or two. But
so we have a private Facebook group, which Luke will throw the link in the chat. It's gated, but if you request entry, we can let you in. If you have examples of things that you need to share, screenshots when you're asking questions, you can use the Facebook group at any time in order to, like ask a question there. Sometimes we do address the questions that are in the Facebook group on the webinar, because they're good case studies and things like that. So Greg, if you've got some examples, you have more questions, put it in the Facebook group. We have a question from an anonymous attendee. What's your opinion on using, in quotes, near me with the keywords to try and rank local pages?
Yeah, 100%. Add near me to your title tags. Add near me to some of your headers and inside your content. Google does change a little bit, like it understands if you're asking near me, it can localize a little bit better, but it still sees near me as a keyword. It still treats it as a keyword. So if you optimize your page, your website page for near me as its own keyword, you're going to get a better organic position from that, and that might flow into your maps listing as well. It's harder to measure that, but 100%. I often add it to service location near me, like you write your title tags, and then if you have something in your title tag, make sure that you're supporting that in the content of your page as well, because I've seen it where some people write service location near me in their page title, but then they don't have the word near or close by or nearby in their content. You want to have those synonyms in the content so that you're supporting what you're saying is what your title is about.
So both places.
Yeah, and use the synonyms too, right? Nearby, close by, near me, near you. It's awkward in some of the writing on your sentence if you want to write near me, but it's like if you're looking for the best plumber near me, then you found the right, there's your keywords in your, like you have to
Get
kind
creative,
of phrase
yeah.
it awkwardly.
I have a question myself. Recently, I noticed that anytime I Google anything, Google pops up over the top of the search and it says, do you want a more local result? Is that something new that they're doing to try to gauge whether people are looking for local?
Yeah, like those pills. Sometimes it'll try to localize you as much as possible. I'm often using plugins that actually localize me in all different kind of places, so I kind of ignore
Yeah,
that.
you're a different setup.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it doesn't know if you might say like you're in a zip code, you might say you're in a town, but it's trying to use your IP address sometimes. So it really is trying to localize you, because the organic results and the maps results will obviously, but the organic results do change as well, depending on your locality. There's a lot of local elements into your organic, and that's what it's trying to identify. So yeah, because sometimes people are different places with their phones and it doesn't really know, are you looking where you are? You want to look at where you usually look. So it's trying to find that information.
An anonymous attendee asked, how can I best use keywords? Does Google utilize things like post titles, descriptions, photos, reviews? Is that still a keyword thing?
Well, yeah, you mentioned a lot of things that I'm looking for the question, but for sure, your on-page elements affect the local a lot. So there's a lot, like I just mentioned, there's a lot of local elements into the organic SERPs, but if you optimize your web pages and it's like linked to your Google listing, for sure that information flows back through to your Google listing. So what you
for
want to do,
post titles and descriptions, yes, photos, reviews, all keywords.
well, are we talking about so maybe I'm confused. When you say posts, are you talking about Google posts or like posts on your website? So maybe I misunderstood that.
Well, I'm assuming it's posts on the profile, because how can I best use keywords? Does Google utilize things like post titles, descriptions, photos, reviews? Those all sound like Google
Sorry, I
Business Profile.
misunderstood. Yeah, because I don't see it in front of me.
Yeah.
So posts, we'll go through each one. Reviews make a huge difference. Obviously, we want the reviews because it's a user choice, right? The more reviews you have, the higher rating you have, the better. You want activity on your listings. The more activity, the more engagement on your listing, the better. So things like posts may not have a direct influence. So if you put keywords in the post title or keywords in your description, it's not going to help directly because you've added those keywords. But because you're creating posts with those keywords, there's posts there that people can click on, and now you've created an engagement point on your listing. And the more people engage with your listing, the more Google says, hey, this listing was interesting. People clicked around on it. Let's put that higher because it looks like people are interacting with it. So the more engagement points you put. So
but in terms of keywords, probably not.
No.
So you don't have to really focus on getting near me in there and things like that. But you just do want to post. And
the only thing I would recommend for the post is sometimes they show up in these things called justifications, and sometimes it comes on, sometimes it comes off, and they're not there all the time. But what you want to do is if you create a post about a certain service, let's say you're a plumber and you have, your emergency plumber, maybe you're doing water softeners, maybe you're doing sinks, maybe you have all these different services that you're providing. You want to create posts for these different services because sometimes Google will pull that information into the 3-pack underneath your listing. So it'll say, this business mentioned this, or this website mentioned this specific keyword. So it didn't help you rank, but because it matched the query, now you'll get like that little justification mention.
Almost like a little ad. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Google, and then the user might say, "Oh, yeah, that's that guy does that thing because that's what I'm looking for," and Google matched it to you. So that it wouldn't help you rank there, but once it's there, it can match the query a little bit better. So there are benefits to giving variety to your posts instead of repeating the same thing over and over. So if you have a bunch of services, once you have a bunch of services, let's say you have 6 services and you're doing a post every 2 weeks. You can repeat those 6 services, every quarter or whatever. Like you can repeat those ones, but give a variety of coverage of all your keywords.
Perfect. Roberto asked, now this is kind of a complex question, so you might want to explain. He's asking about Google local inventory ads. So we might need to explain a little bit about, Google local inventory ads. But the question is, can the Google local inventory ads be used as an article finder? Basically, the concept is to make the article skew a point of interest, the skew, skew number, I guess, a point of interest. So I can ask Google, tell me where this specific product is, and Google would then provide a map with the location where this article is available around me or around a specific predefined point.
I don't think it does that yet, but it definitely will if you look for, and this is, done from a few years ago. I remember doing a webinar showing examples of like dill pickle potato chips near me. And then it'll show the grocery stores list. And then, but one of them will say, this business sells dill pickle potato chips because it had it in the inventory feed. So it may not show you a map of exactly who has it, but it'll try to mention it somewhere in the result for that specific product or SKU. It'll pull that information and it'll say like, this store has this thing that you're looking for. But it might show other stores that fit that category as well. Like if you're looking for bicycle parts or something like that, it might show general stores, but it'll say, well, this store has it right here. That's the first one I'm going to show you. But here are some other stores in case they don't have it in stock or something.
Okay. Greg asked, how do you determine secondary categories to use when they're all very similar? So for example, HVAC contractor, air conditioning contractor,
yeah.
Heating contractor, air conditioning repair, furnace repair. What's the optimal number of secondary categories to use?
So the number is you choose the ones that all make sense. Right. So if
there's no limit, you're not going to get penalized for having too many.
No. Well, there's 10. You can go up to 10, but usually you don't need to go up to 10. There's maybe a dentist or lawyers can go up to 10 because there's that many different categories. But it's rare that you can max it out. But pick the ones that make sense. In that case, what I often do with those kind of contractors is you're switching them on seasonality. So if in the wintertime you're furnace repair, in the summertime you're the AC repair, right? Because that's how people are searching. But to answer your question, as like you can't order your secondary category, so that's not an issue. Is you pick whatever is relevant. How do you know which one of those to pick? Like there's a lot of similar ones, and I don't have it off the top of my head, but I do have it I have it written down for somewhere for that specific those categories. Is if you're looking at, there's a couple furnace repair ones. Some of them rank you better for certain keywords. So this is where you might want to test. So if I've not, I don't know them by heart, like the details of the names, but one says furnace repair, one says like one might say furnace repair contractor, one says furnace installer or something like that. Some, whichever one you choose, the furnace installer is going to rank better for furnace installer and not as good as repair. And the repair one is going to, so and the same thing for dentists. Some of them, like, are you a dentist or are you a dental clinic? They're different. There's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of overlap, obviously, but some are going to rank better for some keywords and not other ones. So there's a little bit of differentiation in there.
So now you really want to go and see which keywords are being used, right? Because furnace repair you might get 1,000 of those queries in your location per month, whereas furnace installation contractor might only be 6, right? So do you suggest doing that work to figure out which category?
Yeah, then that's what we do with clients is we'll test it out. We may not do it in the heavy busy season, right? We may not want to be playing around too much, but if you're in the transition season, maybe spring to or fall, like you're kind of transitioning, you might want to see which ones. I do have some of that information. So again, if you want to go to Facebook, and ask that same question, I could try to give you a little bit of that of my testing. I don't mind doing that, and we'll see.
But for HVAC, I hear you saying you actually do switch them in the season. So you would do all air conditioning ones when it's getting towards that time of year, and all, or maybe not all, but skewed toward those
We'll update
services.
the primary category depending on what season. What's more important? What's the business? What is the service that you're providing that's the most important right now to you and to your customers? If it's AC repair, then that's what you want as your primary category in the summer. You switch it up. There's not a lot of categories that have that ability to do that.
Yeah.
Really, but yeah.
So an anonymous attendee asked, sometimes profiles with no description, posts, reviews, etc., are ranking higher than me. Why?
Yeah. So a couple reasons. Sometimes they don't have a lot of visibility. They might have high visibility in a very localized location because you're right next to that address. Or, they might be.
So if you were doing a local Falcon scan on them, what you might see is that you're in the middle of a grid that has just like one green spot in the middle and then all red, meaning they're not appearing right outside of that very small area. That's
right. Yeah, their bubble of visibility is very small. You just happen to be in that tight little area, and that's where you're looking. And it could
on
be
their front door.
Yeah. Or like sometimes you're doing like plumber like town, but they're located right dead center of the town, and that's what Google wants to show because they're central right there. The other reason might be well, there's 2 other reasons. If they do have a larger visibility bubble, then what could be happening is that Google created that listing because automatically, and it does that a lot, because it found information on the internet and says, oh, look, we found information about XYZ business from a couple different places. It looks like that's a real business, so we're going to create a listing, and hopefully the owner is going to see it and claim it. When it does that, it means Google trusts that information very highly. So it plopped a new listing because it had a lot of information, and because it has a lot of information, it thinks it's a real business, so it's going to rank it. So that's another reason. And then the third reason could be, and I had a client that asked me this recently, is why is this listing that looks very poor, why is it ranking very well? Their website hasn't been updated in 15 years. It has like, it has the 2008 in there. Why are they ranking so well? And I'm saying it's because it's been there since 2008, and there might be tons and tons of mentions. Their website might be old, but there's they were in the yellow pages 15 years ago, and Google has all that data, and it has all this info. Again, the similar ideas. It has a lot of information and a lot of historical information from a long time ago, and says, yeah, we know that this business exists, and it's there, and we're going to rank it well. So even though the website hasn't been updated and they didn't, do a post ever, Google knows that it exists with a lot of data. So it's really based off of the background data, and sometimes you can't do anything about it because it's just old and it's just there.
I think Greg added a little comment to this question saying, right, I use a tool that shows me the coordinates where they say the address is.
Yeah. So it's Logo Falcon does that sometimes too, where it'll show a location for a business, but it's not actually there. It might be old information. Because once you hide your address in your Google profile, you shouldn't know where it is unless they've written on their website and whatever tool is going and trying to. So there's no real 100% way to know where a business is once they've hidden your address, unless they're giving themselves away somewhere else, right? And even there, you don't even know. They can write an address on their website, but that's not where they verified from. So I'm not trying to dismiss you because I'm not sure of the answer, but we can't really 100% know once the address is hidden if that's where their central point is.
All right, Alexa asked a two-part question, so I'm going to hit this one while I can see both pieces at the same time. So the first question was, what happens if or when you have a Google Business Profile duplicate, but then added more detail by saying, following up on the original question, we have a client that had their profile duplicate. It took their profile back to before we optimized it. Pictures are missing and are pending, and all the review answers are gone. Essentially what happened is that the original profile turned into the duplicate, and the new duplicate profile is acting as the original. Would this be a Facebook question? And DBA is not updating with either profile.
So this might be a glitch. I mean, I've seen something just yesterday, and I didn't mention it in the bug part of like in the beginning. If there's bugs, I'll mention it. Starting a couple days yesterday, there's been a lot of mentions in the Google like in the forum, that there's a lot of people complaining that my business was marked as a duplicate erroneously, or my business was merged with another business erroneously.
We've had a bunch of these in the chat too at DBA recently.
So I think that's a new glitch that is going on. At that point, it's very difficult. Typically, it's been very difficult to deal with that because regular support is not great at disassociating things technically. So the first step I would do is to go and collect the information of, here's like my original listing with this place ID or my original CID. So make sure you record the information of, this is a place ID number 1, place ID number 2, and this is the that kind of information. Contact support and tell them, like, no, these are not duplicates. These are 2 completely different addresses. They just happen to be the same name. You shouldn't really be using the same phone numbers on listings. So I'm not sure, maybe that's what the system, I think it seemed like they might have ran a system algorithm thing or something, that a new filter that is looking for similarities between listings and merging them or marking things as duplicate. So you have to make sure, your name can be the same, but your phone number and address should always be different, right? And that would hopefully prevent things from merging. But if the system is doing it, going a little bit too heavy on the duplicate markings, go to contact support with that information and see if they'll deal with it properly. And if not, then you'll have to escalate the thing. But the way to avoid that as much as possible is to differentiate by using a different phone number every time.
Okay, here's a question from an anonymous attendee. My company is in the YMYL space, where we offer services that are covered by insurance. Since 2022, we've experimented with utilizing the new insurance module section available in the profile. Sometime this year, Google has seemingly stopped displaying this information to the user, and we can't find any information online. Any chance you have a lead here? Additionally, this section is incredibly manual to keep updated. Do you know of any API options that have been created for this?
I don't know if we have that in DBA. I'm not up on the API section there, so that maybe that's something that if we
Well,
don't have,
that is a possibility. I mean, there's constantly new API connections, new features that happen in the DBA platform. So that would be a question to post. Reach out to us about that, because that is a possibility.
and so I know the only thing I know about the not displaying it as much is there was, and I'm not in the state, so I don't have it off the top of my head, but the Medicare, Medicaid, it used to display it like more prominently, and I think they removed that recently. So I know that they've been touching those elements like in the last few months type of thing. Google's been playing around with the coding on and the display and how it shows up. I don't have more information than that.
Does
I think on mobile it shows, yeah.
YMYL, your money or your life?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
High important categories where you're spending either a lot of money or for things, or if it's medical, where it's very very sensitive information or highly important information or expensive things that you're doing.
Gotcha. So a lot of privacy concerns, and Google regulates that a little bit more. Is that the idea?
In general, I mean, yeah, we see that in the organic where they're more sensitive. Google will force sites that it trusts a lot more than it's not going to show shady sites where like gambling might come up because people are entering credit card information and things like that. It's going to be like, no, here's Wikipedia and here's Forbes, and here's as much as people are complaining, they're like, here's our super trusted sites, because this could be information where someone might lose a lot of money or is get bad medical information. We want to make sure we're giving good, and it may not be the best, but we know that it's not going to be shady.
Gotcha. So the answer to the question is yes, there have been some changes that you have noticed in how that stuff is displayed. And possibly there are API options you should reach out to us about. DBA is a platform, a SaaS platform, a software platform for doing profile updates at scale. But we do have a big sort of custom tech side for people who need to do things like literally at scale. So a lot of API connections that are built for certain industries and things like that. So there's quite a bit of customization that we do for healthcare, for automotive industry, for different industries that might have inventory and things like that. So there are a lot of use cases where, there are custom features built.
Yeah, I know I recently had a couple listings. They only had two with the insurance. I think it was chiropractor, and they have two listings at this point. And their insurances were all like, some of them had a bunch of these ones and some of them had a bunch of there was like maybe 70% overlap, but they weren't all the same. And you have to go back to the clients like, hey, because Google updates things automatically and sometimes you don't get those notifications. And so, yeah, if you have a lot of listings, definitely the API. So contact us and we'll see if we can do anything that, it might save you time overall.
Yep. And if you need to reach out to us, go to the chat, not the question and answer box, because that's public to everybody. But if you go to the webinar chat, Luke is standing by and he's putting out links for you during the webinar. And but he can also take your information if you if you need customized help with something like an API, you know, we can have somebody reach out to you. Just reach out in the webinar chat and we'll get that set up. Next question from Greg. What's more important when you're choosing and adding services to your Google business profile? Are the pre-populated ones that Google offers more important than custom ones that you can add?
Okay, yeah, so the pre-populated ones are a bit more important. I've 100% done testing, and when you choose those extra keywords, they're like, just so everyone knows what we're talking about, when you go to the services area, if you each category that you choose is going to have its own little like subsection for services. If you go into that, Google will populate some automatically, these little bubbles of pre-populated keywords, or you can manually add. If you choose the ones that Google has pre-populated, you will increase your rankings for those keywords in those pre-populated ones. If you manually add, I haven't seen as much benefit. It's hit or miss. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But what I normally do is I don't want to use the bad word, I'm going to spam those services manually and put every single variation possible of my services manually. So pick everything that makes sense pre-populated, and then add 30 different listing services manually of every single combination possible. That's what I do. There's no downside to adding extra, and it can help you. It shows up in the justifications. If it matches a query, even if it's not helping you rank, it matches a query. You know, provides XYZ service. Oh, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Even though you're third in the 3-pack, now you get that little extra justification bolded, and it matches exactly what the person is looking for. You might get that.
So if it's a super niche thing that people are asking for, and there isn't anything that Google has that to pre-populate, it would be really good to do it because people will find it potentially. But the ones that Google puts out, if you match those, you should do those and not create variations of that to make them customized. Correct?
You could put like, look, if it says sometimes there's no pre-populated one, so you have to just manually enter whatever you want. If there's pre-populated ones, pick those, but then add anything else that you want to add manually.
So on that note, this is a question we get a lot. Is there some place that Google posts these categories? I know, Jan, we do them. You go over them. You just went over like Armenian food and like the new ones. We do it in the webinar. Is there some place that Google posts these new categories and updates?
No, there's not. You have to use the API.
How do you find them?
Well, we use the API and we say what's new. Like we just look by date which one's been added. So you have to use the API call to do
Gotcha.
that. Yeah.
What are the most important activities when it comes to managing my, in this case, Google My Business? Do I need things like chat options or social media links? Will Google promote me more if I add that kind of stuff?
So the chat is up to you, and that's more of a business decision. If you're willing to do that, you know, there's a lot of providers that just do chat, and they, you know, because you could talk to the customer right away, they're not going, you know, somewhere else. It's like,
do you think that Google gives that
I don't think you get priority, no. But if you don't answer the chat fast enough, then they'll turn it off for you. Like it'll take a few months, but you know, if people are chatting you and you never answer, then Google will turn off the feature, which is probably a bad mark on your listing. It also it measures the response time, but you got to make sure if you turn it on, you got to make sure if there's spam, and there is spam that comes through, you mark it as spam, because then if you don't answer the spam, it'll count against you. But do I think it'll help rankings if you turn it on? No, but it's more of a business decision. Are you willing to be there within, you know, a minute when someone chats you? Are you going to be there? Because the expectation of someone who's chatting is that you're there. I'm waiting for your answer, right? So you have to be more available. So that may not fit into your business processes.
So Kara asked, I sell products online as well as having a brick and mortar store. I'm concerned that with the algorithm updates that our organic ranking will be less effective. Do you have any advice?
All right, hold on a second.
You want me to read it again?
Yeah, you know, I was still thinking of part 2 of the other question.
That's okay.
They asked about the socials. Let me just come back real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Adding the socials is important. Uh, I can't, there's NDA in here, so I can't say, but I'll just give a general. Google, Google put a lot of resources in adding those fields in your listing. They weren't there before, whatever it was, 6, 8 months ago, and now the fields are there. It takes a lot of programming and resources and time from developers to do that. They didn't do that for no reason.
For no reason.
I can't say more.
All right, I think we can read between the lines there.
Yeah.
Okay, so
go ahead to your other question. Sorry.
Kara said, I sell products online and I have a brick and mortar store. So sounds like obviously national and local. I'm concerned that with the algorithm updates that our organic ranking is going to be less effective. Do you have any advice?
So the organic rankings for your e-commerce side, I guess. I don't do a lot of e-commerce, so that's difficult for me to speak to. I don't know what the algorithm, I don't know what the core update is doing to e-commerce sites because I don't really check e-commerce organic. I don't check those too much, so I'm not sure. At this point, the general idea for SEO is that it's like, hey, wait till the core update is over before you make any, drastic changes to your website. But now it's been almost 2 months. So it's at a certain point, you can't just keep waiting. So you said you're concerned that it's going to affect you, but I don't know. I mean, it hasn't, and you're not sure. If you're still ranking well, then just leave it as is and see what's going on. And then if it does affect you, you got to wait till the update's over. Then wait a couple weeks. SEOs are going to do some analysis and see what changed, what's more important, this and that. At that point. So I can't really speak more than that to your question. Sorry.
Okay. Is Google now using AI for Google My Business verification videos?
Not that I'm aware of. I think the verification videos are still being checked by a human.
How important is citation management? It seems that all my clients use Google and Yelp, so I make sure those are updated.
So, I mean, DBA, we have citations because we think it's still important. Remember when I talked about the listings that might pop up out of nowhere because Google had data somewhere? Google's crawling the web and it's reading all these websites. And if 50 websites, even though they're scrubby websites, no one's really visiting it, they're indications that a business exists at that place. Those citations matter. But the important part is Google needs to know about those citations. So yeah, those citations might get created, but then if Google didn't crawl those pages yet, Google doesn't know about the information. So sometimes you have to help Google find those citations. But 100% citations do help. You want to obviously have a priority list of which ones are more important, like Yelp or Houzz, and depending on your category, you're going to have different directories for lawyers and service area business and things like that. So do those ones first. But then all those other ones that don't seem as important, no one's ever going to visit them. A lot of them still get indexed, which means it's feeding, trust for your phone number, your business name, and your address. It's still important. Not as important, but it's still important.
Yana asked, we have 16 profiles and we're working to create an optimized posting schedule. What's the best amount of posting? What's too much? Is once a day too much? Once a week?
Google says once a week. Again, as mentioned before, they don't help with the rankings necessarily. So what I like to do is just cycle them through so that you get the variety of services that you're talking about. If you're doing once a week and then you have, 12 different services and it takes you a couple months to talk about all those things, then you can start to slow it down. You don't have to do it once a week if that's arduous. Do it once every 2 weeks. Even once a month, if you don't have a lot of things to talk about, is fine. You could do an offer post. They can sit there for a long time. So don't go crazy with posts once a day was way too much. The important part is you're covering your services in a short amount of time in the beginning. and you want people to be engaged on them potentially. So if you're cycling them through too quickly, no one's ever going to click on it. No one's ever going to see it. It doesn't help you at all.
This is kind of an interesting one. AB asked, are near me or nearby the same keyword? Is there something better?
I mean, I always optimize the title tag for near me because that's how people search. People do type nearby, but not as often. So we want to use near me. But in your text, in your page, I want to use variations of the near me. So I don't want to have near me 10 different times. I want to have near me, close by, nearby, near this. We want to have those words in there just to support the document. So near me is the target, but you don't want to overstuff that phrase.
Yeah, we are approaching the top of the hour, and I noticed Alexa said in here, I just joined the Facebook group, and we'll catch up on that combo. But holy cow!
Yeah.
So I guess
there's not always a lot going on in there because it's private, just to let you know. But I do look at everything that comes in and I answer. So it's kind of like a free access to me to a certain point. Other people can answer, obviously, but yeah, so it goes in cycles. Every time there's a webinar, people start asking questions. It's kind of,
right,
and it
right.
slows down.
People forget that it's there. But
Yeah,
the thing
exactly.
is, I
Yeah.
personally get asked all the time, can I have a call with Yan? Can I have a call with Yan? No, because he's busy, he's working, he's got a lot of things going on. But a lot of times in the Facebook group, he will answer a lot of questions. You can get a lot of information. Somebody else asked in here too, are there blogs or things where I can keep up? What's your source for like getting the latest information? Yeah, our blog, we do take information that comes from Google, we digest it and put it through our blog at DBA. So you might want to, go to the website and get connected to get notifications of new blogs and updates from DBA. And then, Jan, did you have something that you wanted to share?
No, there's still a lot of questions that we didn't get to, so add those into the Facebook group. I will try to get them to them in the next day or so. I have my regular schedule work, like you said, but no, that's it. I mean, DBA does a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things that we can help you with, besides giving you information like this. The goal of DBA is to help you, help support your business as much as possible, and also to help automate, and save you guys time so you can grow and expand, right? So. Check out our services. I think I have it on the screen here of just a basic overview of what we're doing, but if Sarah wants to.
Yep, and I'm sorry, I went really fast there at the end trying to get to as many questions as possible. This might spark more questions for you as as we just talked in depth about some of these things. Feel free to go to the Facebook group and post something there. You can reach out to Luke if you have an idea for a webinar topic or a question that you want us to tackle. We're happy to do that. The more information, the better. And, we have this webinar every single month. And we have Yan and other experts who come on to help answer the questions that, as you know, if you've ever tried to get Google support, these questions are impossible to answer unless you can get an expert who has the experience. And even then, this stuff is not published. It's not available. Yan and his cohorts are doing this through feel, through just being in there all the time and being able to sense, what's important, what's going on, and doing a lot of experimenting and testing in the real life profiles. And so they are a great source of information. So feel free to keep the questions coming. We'll see you next month on the webinar. And thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you.